And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Hi, this is Kathy Frey, and welcome to this week's IMCO webinar, the International Integrated Maternity Healthcare webinar. And of course, we're focusing on maternal natural health. And this week, I'm very pleased to be bringing to you Katrina Schwartz. Katrina, say hello.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, just like you.
Welcome along. And Katrina is coming to us from Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. So it's kind of early in the morning for her. So having probably a nice stiff cup of coffee just beforehand.
Definitely.
But yeah, welcome along. So today we're going to be talking about leaning into grief and how midwives and other allied health professionals can holistically support families experiencing perinatal loss. And just a little bit of an overview background on Katrina. She's been a midwife for 10 years, working across the spectrum of pregnancy and birth and postnatal care. But she's went on to do her master's in counselling. So, you know, that really began that career path of bereavement midwifery. And, you know, you combine a degree in midwifery and a degree in counselling, and that's your specialty. You know, it's such a tricky subject where I think that we, as maternity health professionals, are often very poorly guided as newbies, you know, into how to deal with it. And it's something that ends up sort of just randomly, accidentally evolving as to, you know, how you do. But we'll talk more about that, won't we? You know, and in today's session. So today's format is going to be basically a question and answer, and just a general chat. And so those of you watching live, look, please send your questions through. We'd love to hear them. Also there's that chat button where you can let us know where you are in the world and your role as a health professional. And as I say, please do feel free to put through your questions and answers there. So look, Katrina, let me hand over to you for a moment and tell us more about you, your background, and how you ended up in this particular journey.
So I had always had an interest in bereavement midwifery ever since I was a student. And I was very lucky. Back then, 10 years ago, the facility I trained at was very open in having students, well, I shouldn't say very open, but they were somewhat open to having students go in and experience bereavement with a senior midwife, which from that moment on, I knew that's something that it's special. It's a special part of the job. And it's something that I really wanted to go further into. And I sort of experimented. I did a little bit of lifeline volunteering, but nothing ever really felt the same. So that was what led me to do the Masters of Counselling, because I really wanted to be better at doing bereavement.
I find it fascinating that you say that, you know, that the training facility you were working at, you know, was open to that. I mean, it's such an incredibly valuable thing to be able to be led through by a senior midwife as a student midwife.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's a while ago that I did my midwifery qualification, but I can barely recall us touching the topic. I'm sure we would have, you know, but I certainly can't recall there being, for example, a you know, visiting counsellor coming into the class, and or you know, and you would think that the topic should be more than just having a, you know, some visiting speaker for the day or something. It wouldn't be a day, it would be, you know, 2-hour lecture. But yeah, we don't do it well. I don't think we teach it well. So because we're not getting taught it well, we don't do it well.
Yes.
And I'm just as an aside, I wonder where, I mean, I see it from the midwifery perspective, but I wonder where our obstetric colleagues Okay. I would hazard a guess that their system isn't much better.
No, I would hazard a guess that it's somewhat worse.
Right.
Yes. I think that doctors in general get given tips and talks around, or maybe a talk or a few talks around difficult conversations. But it's very different to have a conversation with a family to let them know that their 90-year-old grandfather is palliative versus having the conversation to let a family know that their baby has died.
Yes.
There's this sense of real hesitation and trepidation and not wanting to make things worse when it comes to perinatal grief. It's like a whole new level. It's a different level, I think, for practitioners. And I think it's not done specifically enough. We're not pinpointing it.
Where do you say not done specifically enough? You mean we're not specifically teaching our maternity health professionals how to do it?
Yes.
And yes, it's almost like it's just, even in training, it's swept under the carpet.
Yes. Absolutely. We're continuing to perpetuate the stigma and taboo around perinatal death and loss. It's just, it really makes me upset, I think. And I've been doing bereavement with midwifery now for a few years, and the consistent theme I hear from most women is how a lot of people don't want to talk about it, or if they do talk about it, it's done very briefly, and it's done with
when you say a lot of people don't want to talk about it, are you talking about the families, or are you talking about the health professionals?
Both.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't hear many stories, for instance, of the women coming back to me and saying, my GP rang me. You know, as a health facility, I'm sure in New Zealand it's the same. We notify the GPs via letter of what's happened. And you would, if you were anybody else, you would ring that person and say, I'm so sorry for your loss, particularly if your GP has a really long-standing caring relationship with you. And there are a lot of women who will say to me that they never experienced that condolence, for a simple phone call, or even at the next visit, when they come for their follow-up visit, they'll say very quickly, I'm really sorry for your loss, and they move straight on to, how are you feeling physically? There's no wanting to sit there with the woman in her pain, or ask her questions, or ask about the baby. It's all, hush, 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 push past it. Don't want to feel that pain with you, which is it upsets me for these families. It really upsets me.
And you can almost see what's going on in the mind of the health professional at the time. It's like, if I open that door, how long am I going to be stuck in this conversation?
Oh, I understand that.
I've got the next client coming in. How well am I going to manage the conversation anyway? Am I dredging up stuff that she's already been processing? Yeah, you can just see it, or I can say, I'm so sorry of your loss. Yeah, it's just that standard. Where it's funny, because if you compare it to another big life event, let's say they've just got married, or they have just given birth happily, we wouldn't sum it up with one sentence. Exactly. Congratulations that you just got married. There'd be a little bit more that would be said. Or congratulations on the safe arrival of your baby. There'd be more.
Yeah. How'd you go? Did you have a Caesar? Did you have a natural birth? You'd ask more follow-up questions. Kathy, I completely agree with what you're saying. And it's something that the more we talk about it, and I'm so proud to say that quite a few of the families that I have worked with are now also kicking that taboo, talking about their baby, posting pictures on social media, posting milestones like birthdays, annual remembrances, or even simple grief shares, a simple, quotation or something around grief, just airing it. When people talk about it and it becomes a part of a conversation, or people just see it on social media, it's kind of in the back of your mind and it doesn't feel so taboo anymore. So these families, and my ultimate hope is that in the space of your career and my career, we won't have to have this conversation anymore. Because people will,
it becomes normalized.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know if you old enough to recall, but there was, I don't know, it was back in like the would have been, I don't know, early 1990s, maybe 89 or something, and Demi Moore was on the cover of Vogue, I think it was, with her naked pregnant belly. And I'm not kidding you, the whole world was fascinated because so few people had seen a naked pregnant belly. Like now, we don't think anything of going to the beach and seeing a pregnant woman with a bikini on, and you can see the skin, you can see what a pregnant belly looks like in the flesh. But at that time, it was absolutely my sort of culturally altering when she did that, because it was always covered up. Or when Princess Di gave birth to William, her first baby, and out comes from the hospital with her muumuu dress on, covering up the afterbirth bump, but it's so different when Kate Middleton comes out showing the bump.
Yes, that's right.
We are progressing along what had been taboo, but we haven't got there with this. Another quick question: when you say you've been working as a bereavement midwife, can you just explain a bit more about how are you called into situations? Or I mean, bereavement within midwifery tends to be an unforeseen thing, so or unforeseeable, and then it occurs and then we deal with it. But how do you manage to work your specialty in with the system?
So with each facility that I'm aware of does the bereavement role slightly differently. So I can really only talk about what we do at my facility. So if we are on site and there is a diagnosed stillbirth, or a woman comes in after a scan that, isn't where we have to have the conversation that the family will have to make that choice, unfortunately, we will get called. For families who come in and then deliver their baby, unfortunately, we don't do the deliveries. I know facilities where the bereavement midwives do. We don't at the moment. So we do a lot of the aftercare support. I will follow up with the women. Technically it's supposed to be 6 weeks, but what I tell them all the time, when you're with me, you're with me forever. So I do a lot of counselling straight after, a lot of guidance straight after, but I still know women 2 years down the line. And we are very lucky in our facility that part of the bereavement role is we have an antenatal clinic for women who are then pregnant after a loss. And it doesn't matter how many babies after a loss. So they get continuity of care through us.
Fantastic. So
isn't it
this
beautiful?
is actually, just to clarify, this is a paid role within your hospital.
Yes.
That obviously hospitals have social workers and counselors and things, but you've got a specific, I guess it's almost like having specialist diabetes midwives.
Exactly.
You've got a specialist bereavement midwife.
Exactly.
Wow.
And
I think that there'll be a lot of us watching who are having a little mind moment, going, wow, that's probably a needed role within a lot of hospitals, where a lot of hospitals
Well,
wouldn't have it.
my facility allowed me to go one step further, and because I am a registered counsellor, I can even offer these families free counselling if they wish, which is just, it's phenomenal. I'm so grateful to them to allow me to be able to do that within that role, because it's so needed. It's just so needed. And I've had a lot of women who say that they've accessed mental health professionals before, who unfortunately have the same feelings that is very common around perinatal death and loss, that uncomfortableness, or perhaps whilst the feelings of grief remain the same, if it's your 90-year-old grandfather versus your baby, the specifics of it aren't.
Yes.
And, there are different things that you as a counsellor talk about. And the fact that my facility allows me to do that, to provide these women with this care and these families with this care, because it's open to both parents. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed to be a part of that facility that allows us to do that.
It's absolutely fantastic. So needed.
Oh God, yeah.
Fantastic. It would be interesting to know, others that are watching today, if this is something that is in your system, locally where you are. What do you want health professionals caring for bereaved parents to know?
There's a lot. But the first thing is, I often think that when we walk into a room, we feel like we are such a tiny part of their journey. We might only be there for 8 or 12 hours if we're on shift. And yes, we are full of fear, and yes, we are really worried as we go into that room. Well, can we handle it? And all these kinds of questions going through our mind. And then we kind of rationalize it. But we're only there for 8 hours. The reality is that every person who walks into that room is a pivotal point in that parent's journey. And the research show that the care that we give in that immediate aftermath can actually have an effect on how parents cope with their grief for the entirety of their lifetimes. So, that's a lot of pressure. I understand that's a lot of pressure, but it's just about being really cognizant as we're walking to a room that, yes, it's another day at work for us. And yes, we may see another family tomorrow. We might have seen another family yesterday. But for these parents, every moment we're with them it could shape the way they see their journey for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And I just,
So yeah, I really hear what you're saying there. So that whole point here, getting back to the fact that yes, you may be doing an 8-hour shift, and
Yeah.
yes, you may spend a couple of hours with them, and tomorrow you'll be doing something different, and you've got other patients you're looking after at the same time
Yes.
today. But that impact that what you do or don't do will have an impact for that woman for the rest of her life.
Absolutely.
Whereas the other patients that you may be dealing with that day, some of the stuff you're doing, a lot of what you're doing probably won't be impacting them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
It's something as simple as changing our language. So, using the medical term of terminating for known fetal congenital abnormalities. Could we just change that to, now that you've decided to have to end your pregnancy, your wanted baby, your wanted pregnancy, because we've been delivered this news that, it's so simple. We don't have to talk to these families with we just have to be cognizant of our language, I suppose is what I'm saying. Be really careful with your words. And it's hard to do when we are on autopilot.
Yes.
It's hard to do the same thing every day, but it's just when you're with these families, be really careful, think before you speak. And if you'd have nothing, if you don't know what to say, it's okay. Just listen. Nothing you say to these families is going to take away their pain. It's that simple. You aren't going to change this outcome for this family. They will be in pain no matter what. So
Right.
if you can't think of anything.
That's such a really good point that you make there. And I know it's really obvious, but accepting the fact that nothing we do is going to take away their pain. But
Nothing.
there are things we do that could contribute to their pain.
Bingo. Exactly.
And using the word terminating,
Yes.
it's so I mean, look at the movie The Terminator, like it's such a harsh word, right? And to us it's a medical thing, and it's not a word that people use in everyday life. They don't say,
No.
I terminated my cat.
That's right.
I put my cat to sleep. We can tend to go into our medical flow without
Exactly right.
how uncomfortable a word may sound for a non-medical person. What's a common myth that you think bereaved parents would like us to bust for health professionals caring for them? What's their perspective?
For me, there are a few. When we walk into a room after a delivery, where the outcome has not been the desired outcome, we of course would walk in and express our condolences. But that family has also been through labour and birth. Mm-hmm. We don't congratulate that family to say, what an amazing job you did in labouring. Like, you are still that warrior woman. You are still worthy of congratulations. You still have your baby here with you. Congratulations on your baby. And again, that's lifting that veil, I suppose, off of perinatal death and loss. But we forget that family has still been through a life-altering experience that goes beyond the death. So it's that woman has still had to have all the feelings of labour and birth. She still had to deliver that child. She still had to work. And just because her baby wasn't alive at the end doesn't mean that she doesn't deserve congratulations. Her effort and the partner's support should still be acknowledged. That's a huge one for me. And I have read it in research, but also within families, as I walk into a room and I congratulate them, the look on their faces. And the research says, that the midwife who came in, I recall reading one quote from a mother saying, the midwife who came in and congratulated me on the birth of my baby was the only person who said congratulations to me. I know. And can you imagine having a baby and not feeling some sense of accomplishment or some sense of celebration? So that's a huge myth for me.
So, that word accomplishment, it really particularly, hits the spot. It's that, I don't know, it's almost like, you've done this huge marathon and, 100 meters out from the end, you twist your ankle and you can't run the rest of it, nobody's talking about the fact that you did all that the rest of the marathon. It's like, exactly. I know it's not the same thing, but it's like I really hear what you're saying there.
And the
congratulations on giving birth to a human being. That's a big deal.
Yes.
And the idea of going through that, for those women who are going through that labor, knowing that they are giving birth to a dead baby. Mm-hmm. That is, look, I can't imagine how hard.
Me neither.
It's beyond it, isn't it?
And we often forget as I can't imagine. But that we forget as health professionals that woman is still going through the hormonal changes that every woman goes through who's just given birth, when the placenta comes out, and there's still that hormone cascade. So that's why often women in birth suite will be somewhat peaceful and calm. And yes, there will be tears, but a lot of the time they're quite stoic. And it's because they're still having that hormone cascade. They still feel like they're on cloud 9 because that's what our bodies were designed to do. So, let's not forget that woman still is feeling things that everybody else gets, whether their baby is alive or not. We still have to acknowledge her accomplishment in doing that. Anyway, so that was kind of the first myth.
It is such a good point. Such a good point of the fact that she's just recognizing that she's gone through that complete labor and birth, and giving her that congratulations that she gave birth. We've got a message in here from Geraldine, which is a particularly interesting one. I became a birth photographer in October 2020. Parents want pictures with the baby they lost, family pictures with siblings, with the baby wearing different outfits.
Yes.
That baby, because those outfits were all meant to be on that baby. Yeah. The baby is still their son or their daughter. She or he should be remembered. I will not. And she doesn't charge for those pictures, which is lovely.
Brilliant.
Her cousin lost her baby many years ago, and she was very excited to show me her baby's album. And every year on her baby's birthday, I call her. Oh, breaks my heart.
I love you, Jill. I love you, Jill. So in Australia, thank you, Jill, for your service.
Geraldine, it is, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Geraldine. So in Australia, there is an organisation called Heartfelt, where there is a tribe of professional photographers who offer that exact service. So it is so important, Geraldine, what you're doing. I just thank you. Honestly, thank you. You are creating memories for this family that perhaps is one of the only tangible pieces of their child they will have for the rest of their lives. It could be the only proof they have that their child was there and present. So thank you. Like, amazing.
Now we were talking about the common myths that bereaved parents would like us to know, and I really love your point about recognizing and congratulating the labor. Are there any other obvious myths that we should realize?
There's two. The first one is all health professionals walking into a room will often come out and say, oh God, I had to hold back the tears. I wanted to cry. And I want to encourage health professionals, if you are feeling teary, it's okay to cry with the parents. Obviously, if you're sobbing and the parents feel like they have to comfort you, there is a line. But parents don't feel, it humanizes you when you shed a tear with that family. Can
I interject there? I think that I get what you're saying there, but one of those tough things is what your colleagues will think about you doing that as well. I mean, I've been in situations where, I have kind of come out of a birthing suite with some obvious kind of, that was a bit of an emotional one, and had the charge midwife turn around and sort of say, get your shit together. You're a health professional. That kind of thing, so I think that there's this kind of feeling like you almost have to hold it back because of that stoicness. So it is very refreshing to have you say, look, that's a good thing for the, not good, but it's it's an acceptable thing
Yeah.
for
It
our
also, well, it
family
makes
to
us
see.
humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. The family can see that we are also sharing their pain, that it isn't just another day for us at the office, that their
Right.
baby means something to us as health professionals, to the facility. Their baby will be remembered, their baby's having an impact on you. That is so invaluable. We don't understand. And it makes me so sad, Kathy, that you had your head nurse say to you to get it together, because that is
Yeah, I would say more than once. That's just a bit of I think especially when you are a fairly new midwife. And
yeah.
there is a thing of this kind of, slap them around a bit and tough them up, is what needs to be done to them, so
Yeah.
if staff know that you've only been out for 1 or 2 years or something, there's almost like they feel an obligation to get that empathy out of you.
That's a whole different topic that I could
Yeah,
talk
that's a whole
another
different
45
topic.
minutes about, Kathy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that it upsets me. And I guess what I would say as a lasting point on that is to all the midwives or doctors or nurses or social workers or whoever you are who've experienced that kind of attitude from somebody more experienced than you, it's not about you. It's about them. And in this instance, it's probably about their own feelings around death, dying, grief, and loss.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's don't carry that with you. That's not yours to carry, that's theirs to sort. So if you need to shed a tear, shed that tear. The parents will be grateful. And we're there for the parents and the families anyway. They're our ultimate goal.
And I like how you say that for the parents to see that this is not just another routine day in the office kind of thing for the health professional. It's just seeing that, a little bit of humanness coming out. You say there was another myth that you were going to mention.
Yeah, and the last one that is very common is not team leaders, managers being very hesitant sending in pregnant midwives to look after these families. And I want to acknowledge that if that midwife cannot do that day, 100% support and understand that. I respect their decision, as should the managers in supporting that midwife and her mental health. I support that. But if managers are worried about sending in a pregnant midwife to a bereaved family, I kind of want to lay that to rest. And a woman said something to me that I will never forget. And she said, I don't want her baby. I want my baby. And we are so scared as professionals to send in those pregnant midwives because we don't want to upset them any more. And I understand that. And that's a wonderful intention. But the family don't want that midwife's baby. They want theirs. And we have to remember that if that midwife is in a good headspace, she is ready to care for that family, and she is the best person, or she is the best person to care for that family, then send that midwife in if they can do that day. Because the family are going to go out, they'll walk out of their room to get a cup of coffee and they will see pregnant women in the halls. They will see pregnant women everywhere, but they might get subpar care if we don't send that pregnant midwife in. Right.
So I love that two sides of that don't stress about sending a pregnant woman in, because that's not the baby that they want anyway.
Yeah.
But also at the same time have deep respect if that pregnant midwife is not comfortable to do it.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. And that, because now we're not giving her respect as a midwife, it's giving her respect as a pregnant woman. Yes.
100%.
And just
Yeah.
like say, you don't have to be doing everything. Okay. You hit some really, really important points. Just well done, Katrina.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. So how can we, as health professionals, prepare for caring for bereaved parents?
So this is where we start to talk more around grief and loss, because and it goes back to what we were saying earlier, Kathy, where we are not taught in our training or in our student years, I suppose, about examining our own thoughts and ideas and beliefs and feelings around death and dying. We are told difficult conversations, but we are not told, how do we feel about death or dying? What is our own belief system, and how would that belief system impact our care for a family that has a different belief system? Or perhaps their belief system means that they don't show emotion in public, and we walk into a room and we get all, a little bit judgmental, like, oh, this terrible thing is happening, you're not even crying. Like, we have to really examine our own ideas and beliefs. Are we afraid of death and dying? How does our own...
I guess, but when we do that, if and when the examining of your own beliefs happens, what do you do with that information? Let's say, I don't know, for example, if you are a person who is not religious, so, and you're going to be dealing with people who are religious. So, that's a really fundamental one. But I guess, I suppose we're not examining our beliefs because we don't know what to do with processing that.
Well, the difference is, so rather than examining our beliefs to solve them, so if death is a problem for you, what I'm asking professionals to do isn't to solve the problem of death being a problem for you. My hope is that if you recognize death as a problem for you, I ask professionals, how could that impact the care that you give? So I'm not asking you
coming across as a little bit more cold and sterile.
Maybe trepidatious, maybe frequently saying to your team leader, I can't, don't give that family to me. I can't do that. Perhaps, if you're faced with a family for whatever reason, kind of maybe going mute, or becoming task orientated and not being able to look after the family, just doing everything around the family, not actually acknowledging the family. So that's what I'm asking professionals to do to prepare for looking for bereaved families. What are your thoughts around it, around death and dying? What are your thoughts around your own religion, like you were saying, and how that could impact your care? And also, we're human too. We've had our own losses. Perhaps, midwives who've maybe just experienced a miscarriage or had their own stillbirth or had to make that horrible choice of whether or not to end a wanted pregnancy. Even if your parents have just passed or your grandfather's just passed and you have to walk into a room that's full of, grief and sadness and loss, how will that impact your care? So the other important thing to think about is, do you have compassion fatigue right now? To really self-monitor. Are you in a place that you can care for this family right now and be compassionate in your caring for this family? Because if you can't, you do need to step back. So
yes, when recognizing that there could be some other stuff going on in your life just at the moment, it's not physical, but it's going to impact.
Yeah, because we're human too.
Right.
Yeah, we're human too. So, it's not just about our own fundamental beliefs around death, dying, grief, and loss, but it's also about how we're feeling in the moment and what's going on outside of our professional selves. And if you have some trauma around that, you know, grief and loss, particularly if you've experienced your own perinatal bereavement, being in a place that you can support those families, you might not be for you that day, you know. So it is about reaching out, I suppose, to the people around you that you work with on the floor, to your bosses, and hoping that those people will be able to support you in that way.
You know, it's almost like sort of saying that, recognizing the fact that how you treat those people that day will impact them for the rest of their lives.
Exactly right.
So it's having that gumption to know that maybe you're not the right person on the day, and even though that could annoy the charge, that's a frustrating thing to start swapping people around, or what do you mean you can't do it, you know, like it's having the balls, the courage to sort of stand up and say, look, I know I'm not the right person for the job today.
And I am very conscious, Kathy, as you and I are talking, that that what we're saying may feel like I'm adding more pressure to the professional, that there might be some more fear around caring for these families. My intention is that when you examine yourself and your own thoughts around death and dying, and then you check in with yourself before you walk into a room, my hope is that that will actually alleviate some of the fear. Because if you know that despite your fear of death and dying, you can still be compassionate with a family who is experiencing it, then therein lies the key. When you examine yourself and you examine how it impacts your care, that's where we gain our confidence. Actually, it doesn't impact my care. I might be afraid of death, but I can still look after a family with compassion and kindness and empathy and understanding, despite my own stuff over here. So that's where I kind of want to alleviate the fear around it. Yes, it's important. Yes, you're going to have an impact. But when you've done the work to prepare, then, as in every situation in life, we feel better about it. We feel more confident. We feel ready and prepared to walk in and give our best selves. So that's what I'm really conscious about. And I am watching the time, Kathy, and I apologise because I had this beautiful, beautiful diagram from a article that I had been reading about what helps midwives and other professionals caring for these families.
Yeah, do you want to bring that up now?
If that's okay, because it's just.
And I noticed we've got Geraldine has just made another comment that she also took a grief course, and they support helping the family give the baby a bath. And I never thought of that with such a tender memory. Wow.
Yes. So when one of the things I think that is a myth is that as we walk into a room, we say sorry for your loss, and then we forget that to treat the baby like it's a baby. Go in, look at that baby. That baby's got beautiful toes. Oh, look, she's got your nose. Oh, look, he's got your hair. Oh, my goodness, look how tall. Oh, he's chubby. You know, as a midwife, this is still a baby, and this is the only chance these parents will have to parent this child in the physical, tangible sense. Bath that baby, dress that baby with the parents, help them put a nappy on, tell them what wrap do you want for your baby. It's all about fitting a lifetime of memories for this family in the space of a few days. And you have the power to do that for this family. You have the power to transform and create lifelong memories for this family. How lucky are we?
Fantastic. There's almost not the words actually. Just beautiful. Now explain, share the fascinating looking diagram there.
Yeah, it's really, I love it. So what they've done is they've whittled down about 750 studies and done a meta-ethnography of 10 that really suited what they were looking for. And within that, they have made the professional the candle, which I love this. I love that we have the metaphor of being the light for these families. And within that diagram, they've got the forces that turn off the light. So, you know, we've got the unsupportive culture, just like you've said, Kathy. We've got the emotionally demanding care. So it is emotionally demanding what we're doing. It is hard what we're doing, to do it day after day after day, and to not switch ourselves off, to feel those, to sit in the pain with that family. It's hard. Like it, and that can, you know, burnout, that's real. Compassion fatigue is real. So, you know, that can turn off our light. And the other big one, which we've already talked about, is the lack of preparation and knowledge. So not just the practical side, but also I really want to strongly emphasize the work we have to do in reflecting on ourselves before we go into the room. If we're not prepared and understand our own thoughts, ideas, and beliefs around death and dying, particularly perinatal, we don't go in with our authentic selves. And with that arrow, where they've got avoiding stumbling, that is what they found professionals talked about, kind of not really giving their best care, I think they were really feeling. So doing all the tasks, but not being present with the family, you know, avoiding families, avoiding feeling that emotional connection. And that's when they're not, the nurses and midwives were describing when they don't feel confident, when their light's not shining. These are the kinds of things that they do to cope, to look after those families or avoid looking after those families.
Yeah, focus on the tasks. Don't
exactly
emotionally get involved. Almost avoiding, as you say, avoiding the accountants. Do I really need to go back into that room right now?
Absolutely, yeah.
See all of that. Yeah,
and I've experienced it as well. I'm sure everybody out there has, you know, some colleagues that they can immediately, if it's not themselves, that they can immediately think of. And then within that, so what is the opposite side of that coin? So what gave people the confidence to walk into the room? And this is all, I feel like this is all really stock standard stuff that we already know within ourselves. You know, obviously having good leadership, because like you said, Kathy, it has an impact. You remember that with the charge nurse. Having a sense of professional and personal experiences. So that comes with us as students. We need to send in our students. We need to send in our graduates. We somebody who is senior, who can support them, who can give them those experiences in a safe environment. And they protect that, you protecting the family and you're protecting that student and your future workforce by doing that. And then, you know, the convictions about their role, that part was talking about, I think, the reflections of what we do that helps these families for the rest of their lives, and knowing we have a wonderful impact on these families for the rest of our lives, being proud of that and owning that. And then if sometimes, and a lot of the time, the nurses and midwives in this study, the themes that the researchers found was that we still all kind of grope around in the darkness. So we're not going to be perfect. We're still finding our feet in every situation. And if we don't have the guidance and the task focused care and all that kind of stuff, our light goes out. So that's where those arrows are going backwards and forwards. And you know, when we're wounded after dealing with loss, that's talking about compassion fatigue, burnout, experiencing our own grief around these families, because I'm sure, Kathy, you've experienced families who you will carry with you forever. After these stories, I certainly have many, many families who I will carry with me forever. And, you know, if midwives and nurses and social workers and everybody else that comes in contact, obstetricians, don't deal with that in a healthy way, you know, what are we setting our workforce up for? We're kind of setting up.
I see commonalities with everything that you're saying there. It's such a beautiful summary where it's with all of our health professionals, but particularly those that are dealing with those really intense traumatic kind of situations. So our A&E staff, you know, our ED staff,
Yes.
our paramedics, you know,
Yes.
and, you know, like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
whole other,
Could talk
but
about it all day.
yes, we could. So I that's I'm glad you put that image up. It's very, it's wonderful how they've summarized those things, because
Beautiful.
talk
Yeah.
about hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what are some of the practical things, support that people can do for those bereaved parents after a loss?
So kind of want to use this opportunity to talk about us as not just humans who perhaps will come across family and friends who are experiencing a loss, but also if there are people out there listening who know somebody who, you know, they're listening because a family or friend has lost a baby. Again, you're not
Yeah, it's
going
kind of
to,
like what the bereaved parents want us to know about
yeah,
their grief
exactly,
and
yeah.
loss. Yeah.
You are not going to take away their pain. Don't try.
Right.
And within that, please, please don't use platitudes. Things like everything happens for a reason. This was one day you'll understand why this happened. You can always have another baby. You know, at least you didn't spend a lifetime getting to know your baby and then they died.
Oh,
Oh my God. Please don't say it. just you know, I understand that you feel a desperate need to want to avoid that uncomfortable moment, or you want to help that person feel better, and that's the way you know how. Please don't. Parents do not want to hear that. They want to hear, tell me about your baby. What was your baby's name? What did your baby look like? How big were they? Did you get a chance to hold them? How was that for you? What did you dress them up in? That's what they want to hear. They want to hear, they want to talk about their baby. And if they don't want to talk about their baby in that moment, that's okay. You can say something like, I don't know what to say right now, and nothing I say is probably going to make you feel better, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you. If
yeah.
you want to cry, I'm here for you. If you want to get angry, I'm here for you. I won't take it personally. I'm here for you. That's what people, all grieving people, want to hear. I am here for you.
And I like that you using that comment, you know, look, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do that's going to say or do that will take away your grief, and I'm here for you. That's so honest.
It is. And I recognize within that statement, Kathy, that I'm asking people to feel powerless and to feel helpless. I really recognize that it's not how we, particularly as health professionals, like to feel. We don't feel helpless and powerless. We're there to fix, we're there to save, we're there to rescue. But you can't rescue a grieving person. You can't bring back the person that they love most, that they're missing most in the world. You can't. So you have to be helpless. You have to be powerless. And you're just going to have to be okay with that. It's a hard task to support somebody in their grieving. I recognize that. And if you can't sit there in their pain, do practical things. Buy them dinner. Get them a cleaner for a month. You know, the people who are grieving, how many times have you seen it where people who are grieving, they collapse on the floor, they don't eat, they don't self-care, they don't wash, they don't do anything because they are just surviving. You know what? They don't need to do that. That we can do that for them. We can help them that way. If you can't be a listener, you can be a practical supporter, and that's okay too, because the next person will be able to be the listener, and that's all right. The grieving family won't forget that part. They won't forget that that's how you supported them. I promise you, they won't forget it.
I think it's just beautiful. You've done such a lovely. This has been such an important conversation.
I'm glad.
And you've got so much wisdom there, Katrina. We really could talk for a long time on this.
Oh, we could, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we do need to wind it up, but I appreciate, all your insights into this topic today, because it is something that we're so poorly, I think, generally, trained in how to deal with. And so is there anything that you want to finish off with, that you want to add before we close up today?
I think what I want to say to all the professionals listening is that you are, the fact that you're listening and the fact that you're worried about whether or not you're doing a good job says to me that you are doing the best you can. And to remind yourself of that, and you're never going to be perfect, and that's okay. And to the parents out there that might be listening, I really want to say you aren't alone. Your babies aren't forgotten. And the fact that professionals are having these conversations should hopefully reassure you that we really do want to do right by you, and that your babies have an impact on professionals for many years to come. Yeah. Your babies' lives have an impact.
Well, thank you so much, Katrina.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for going on and being a midwife, and then deciding that you want to go into the area that you have. It's a desperately needed area, that's for sure, around the world. And thank you for the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah. And thank you to those that are here live today with us. That's always really great. And we do appreciate your comments, and we appreciate you taking the time to be live with us. We do know that a lot of people watch this later in their own time, and that's great. And we appreciate you guys too watching it. And so thank you. And I just want to wish everybody a wonderful rest of their week. And thank you, Katrina, for what you're doing.
Thank you,
bye,
Kathy.
everybody.
Bye.